Most people are prisoners, not of others, but of their own reactions. They explode, they argue, they waste time and energy trying to control what's outside instead of mastering what's within. But the Stoics taught us something powerful. You don't have to react. You don't have to fight back. The most powerful response is no response. In this video, you'll learn how to become untouchable. First, by breaking the chains of anger and emotional reaction. Then, by turning all your focus inward, sharpening your purpose, refining your discipline, and reclaiming your time. When you stop being moved by others and start moving with intention, that's when you become truly free. The world doesn't need your reaction. It needs your transformation. Imagine living with an unwavering peace where nothing and no one has the power to shake you, where criticisms, offenses, and problems no longer steal your calm. It seems impossible, right? But the Stoics managed to do it. While the world reacted with anger and frustration, they maintained serenity, not because they didn't feel emotions, but because they learned to control them. Today, I will reveal how you can do the same. If you apply these teachings, you will never again be irritated or disturbed by anyone, not because the world has changed, but because you will have changed. Before we begin, go to the comments and write, "Today starts my best version. I am a Stoic." By doing this, you commit to taking control of your mind and living with discipline. Let's start. Number 1, the destructive nature of anger. Anger is one of the most destructive emotions a human being can experience. Not only does it harm those around us, but it also corrodes us from the inside, weakening our mind and dragging us into decisions we will regret sooner or later. The Stoics saw it as one of the greatest threats to virtue. When anger takes control, we stop being rational and become slaves to our impulses. It is not a sign of strength, but of weakness, a proof that we have lost control over ourselves. Anger is like an uncontrollable fire. It starts with a spark, maybe a misinterpreted word, an action we consider unjust, or an unexpected obstacle. If we fuel it with ruminating thoughts, it quickly grows into a flame that devastates our mental clarity, our relationships, and our well-being. Marcus Aurelius warned that the best way to combat anger is to prevent it from arising. If we learn to recognize its first signs, we can extinguish it before it consumes us completely. The consequences of anger are devastating. Besides causing unnecessary conflicts, it affects our health. Science confirms what the Stoics already knew. Anger raises blood pressure, weakens the immune system, and can trigger cardiovascular problems. It is not just a momentary emotion, but a poison that, if allowed to grow, destroys both body and mind. Epictetus taught that it is not the external circumstances that disturb us, but our interpretation of them. If someone insults us, it is not the insult itself that hurts us, but the importance we give it. Learning to control our perception is the first step to mastering anger. When we let ourselves be driven by anger, our actions become irrational. In the heat of the moment, shouting, insulting, or even breaking something may seem justified. But once the storm passes, we realize we've only made things worse. An outburst of anger can destroy relationships that took years to build. An impulsive comment can leave wounds that may never fully heal. Seneca said that anger is like a momentary delirium, a state in which we lose control over our words and actions. If we observe ourselves carefully, we'll see that most of our angry reactions are disproportionate and illogical. Imagine a discussion with a loved one. In the heat of the moment, harsh words may seem necessary, but once everything calms down, we realize we could have handled the situation with more wisdom. Most problems can be solved with dialogue and patience, but anger blinds us and prevents us from reasoning. Instead of seeking solutions, we seek revenge. And by doing so, we only feed a cycle of resentment and pain. The Stoics teach us that the best way to combat anger is through self-discipline and reflection. Marcus Aurelius recommended remembering that life is short and that most of the problems that anger us are insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Seneca suggested practicing patience and indifference in the face of provocations. True strength lies not in reacting with violence, but in maintaining calm when everything around us seems to be trying to throw us off balance. Anger is an internal enemy, a beast that, if not tamed, can consume us. But the good news is that we can train our minds not to be swept away by it. The next time you feel anger rising, stop and ask yourself if it is truly worth it. Remember, nothing external has power over you unless you allow it. Peace is not the absence of provocations, but the ability to face them with equanimity and control. Number 2, all negative emotions arise from unmet expectations. Negative emotions don't arise from what happens, but from what we expected to happen and didn't. Frustration, anger, sadness, resentment, these feelings all have a common root: the difference between reality and our expectations. When we believe the world should behave a certain way and it doesn't, we feel betrayed. But in reality, the failure lies with us, in the distorted image we create in our minds. We cling to an illusion, and when reality shatters it, instead of adapting, we react with suffering. We get angry because people don't act as we would like them to, because the results aren't what we expected, because life doesn't follow the script we've written in our minds. We believe we deserve certain treatments, certain successes, certain paths without obstacles. But the world doesn't follow our rules. Frustration doesn't come from the event itself, but from the shock between what we desired and what actually happened. Seneca said that we suffer more in our imagination than in reality. What hurts us most is not what happens, but how we interpret it. If we learned to accept events without resistance, we would avoid much of the unnecessary suffering. Imagine someone who believes their partner will never cheat on them, because that's how it should be. This person builds an expectation based on their own sense of what is right. But if betrayal happens, the pain doesn't come from the act itself, but from the contrast with the idealized image they created. Instead of accepting reality as it is, they fight against it in their mind, and that internal conflict turns into suffering. Another example is the person who expects their friends to always be available, traffic to be smooth, or their boss to appreciate their efforts. When any of these things don't happen, they feel disappointment and anger, because they assume the world should follow their rules. The Stoics teach us that the key to inner peace is eliminating unrealistic expectations. This doesn't mean resignation, but rather understanding that the world owes us nothing. We cannot control the behavior of others or external events, only our reaction to them. Epictetus said we must accept what happens as if we had chosen it. Resisting reality only generates suffering. If we stop expecting people to treat us a certain way, if we accept that they can fail us, and if we understand that life doesn't follow a predictable path, we eliminate much of the stress and frustration. Accepting reality as it is doesn't mean we shouldn't have goals or desires, but that we need to be prepared for any outcome. We can strive to achieve something, but without clinging to the idea that it must happen exactly as we want. Otherwise, failure will destroy us. Disappointment doesn't come from life, but from our resistance to accepting its uncertainties. A Stoic understands that everything changes, that nothing is guaranteed, and because of that, they don't allow their emotions to be dictated by what is beyond their control. If we eliminate rigid expectations, we stop demanding that the world conform to our beliefs. Instead of getting frustrated when something goes wrong, we ask ourselves, what can I learn from this? Instead of feeling betrayed, we understand that people act according to their own nature, not the one we've imagined for them. Peace lies in flexibility and the ability to accept what comes without resistance. Happiness is not in making everything fit into our expectations, but in learning to flow with reality without letting it steal our tranquility. Number 3, anger is a reflection of the ego. Anger is nothing more than a reflection of the wounded ego. When we feel someone disrespects us, treats us unjustly, or fails to recognize our worth, we react with anger because we feel our identity is threatened. We believe we deserve different treatment, that others should see us as we see ourselves. And when that doesn't happen, we feel something sacred inside us has been violated. But the truth is that anger doesn't arise from what others do. It arises from our interpretation of their actions. It is our ego that demands recognition, that gets offended, that needs to defend its image. If this ego weren't so inflated, if we didn't take things personally, anger would lose its power over us. When someone speaks to us rudely, our first reaction is to think they are attacking us. But what if this person is simply having a bad day? What if their words have nothing to do with us, but with their own internal chaos? The reality is that most of the time, other people's actions are not a reflection of us, but of them. However, the ego makes us believe everything revolves around us. We say, he disrespected me, embarrassed me, didn't appreciate me. But what would happen if we stopped seeing ourselves as the center of every situation? What if we understood that others' behavior is a reflection of them, not us? We could free ourselves from anger. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that it's not what happens that disturbs us, but our opinion of what happens. If someone insults us, the insult itself has no power unless we give it meaning. We can choose to ignore it, see it as a reflection of the other person, and move on without letting it affect our peace. But the ego wants to fight, wants to defend itself, wants to prove it's right. And in this desire to protect our image, we fall into the trap of anger. We lose control and act impulsively. But if someone's insult doesn't change who we are, if their attitude doesn't define us, why allow it to drag us into a state of uncontrolled emotion? A clear example happens in traffic. When someone cuts us off, our ego tells us it's disrespectful, that we need to react, that we can't allow ourselves to be treated like this. But what if the other driver isn't even thinking of us, just stuck in their own world? Still, our ego makes the situation personal, and with that, anger takes control of our mind. If instead of reacting, we simply accepted what happens as a neutral fact, we would avoid that suffering. The same applies to any other context, at work, in relationships, in everyday life. Our reaction is not caused by the events themselves, but by the story we tell ourselves about them. The Stoics teach us that the key to controlling anger is recognizing the role the ego plays in it. If we strengthen our self-esteem, if we stop seeking external validation, if we understand that our value doesn't depend on how others treat us, we become immune to provocation. Seneca said that the best revenge is not to resemble those who wronged us. If someone treats us badly and we respond with anger, we're letting them control us. But if we stay calm, if we choose not to play their game, we demonstrate true strength. Anger is a reflection of an ego that hasn't learned to detach itself from others' opinions. But when we understand that others don't have the power to define us, that their words and actions say more about them than about us, we free ourselves. This doesn't mean accepting abuse or staying silent in the face of injustice, but rather learning to react intelligently and not emotionally. Inner peace doesn't come from controlling others, but from controlling our reaction to them. When the ego stops being the center of our existence, anger loses its dominion over us. Number 4, forgiveness frees us from anger. Anger is a heavy burden we often carry without realizing it. We cling to resentment because we believe that by doing so, we're punishing those who wronged us. But in reality, the only one being punished is us. Anger consumes our peace, traps us mentally, and prevents us from moving forward. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is the key that opens this cell. It doesn't mean justifying what was done to us or forgetting naively, but rather freeing ourselves from the need to keep suffering over something that has already passed. Forgiving is not a gift for the other person. It is an act of self-love, an essential step toward regaining our tranquility. When we cling to anger, we constantly relive the pain. Our minds become battlefields where the past continues to be present, and we keep feeding what hurt us. But to release this weight, Marcus Aurelius said that the best punishment for those who wronged us is not resembling them. If someone betrayed, offended, or hurt us, holding on to resentment only prolongs the control they have over us. Forgiveness, on the other hand, returns the power to us. It allows us to release the weight and move forward without letting the past define us. Resentment is a trap of the ego. It makes us believe that if we forgive, we'll be showing weakness. But the truth is the opposite. True strength lies in those who master their emotions, who choose to let go of what hurts them, instead of holding on to it. Seneca taught that we shouldn't let anger dictate our actions because when we act with rage, we stop being masters of ourselves. If someone hurts us and we respond with bitterness, we're giving that person power over our peace. But if we choose to forgive, we regain control of our minds and well-being. Imagine someone who's been betrayed by a close friend. The natural reaction is anger, disappointment, the desire for revenge. But how long can this feeling be sustained before it becomes a burden? Resentment doesn't affect the betrayer, it affects the one who carries it. Every time the person thinks of the betrayal, they relive the pain. But if they decide to forgive, if they accept that what happened can't be changed, and that the past shouldn't define the present, they find freedom. Forgiveness doesn't mean trusting the one who betrayed us again. It means no longer allowing that betrayal to keep affecting us. Forgiveness is a conscious choice. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's not always easy. But it is the path to inner peace. Epictetus reminded us that we don't have control over what others do, only how we react. If someone insults us, it's not the insult itself that hurts us, but the importance we give to it. By forgiving, we stop giving it that importance. We understand that each person acts according to their own level of consciousness, and that their behavior reflects their internal world, not ours. This doesn't mean allowing abuse or accepting injustice, but learning to release the resentment that prevents us from living in peace. When we forgive, we don't free the other person, we free ourselves. We stop carrying an unnecessary weight, stop wasting energy on a conflict that only exists in our minds. True revenge is not about causing pain, but about showing that the pain did not change us, that we move forward without letting anger consume us. Peace is not about waiting for others to repent, but in deciding that our happiness doesn't depend on their behavior. Forgiveness is letting go of the poison of anger and embracing the freedom that comes with serenity. Number 6, practice non-reaction. When something irritates us, when we feel provoked or attacked, our first reaction is impulsive and emotionally charged. We want to respond immediately, to defend ourselves, to prove we are right. But in that moment, our minds aren't operating on reason, but on instinct. And that's when we make mistakes. We say things we later regret and make situations worse instead of resolving them. The practice of non-reaction allows us to avoid this. It gives us control over our responses and protects us from the emotional exhaustion that impulsive reactions generate. When we give ourselves a moment before responding, when we resist the impulse to act immediately, we gain power over ourselves. It's not about being indifferent or suppressing our emotions, but about training our minds so we aren't slaves to them. Marcus Aurelius said that the best way to defend yourself from an offense is not to resemble the one who offended you. If someone insults or harshly criticizes you, reacting with anger is falling into their game. It's letting them have power over you. But if you remain calm and choose not to respond immediately, you demonstrate that you have control and that your peace doesn't depend on others' actions. In everyday life, the opportunities to practice non-reaction are constant. A coworker makes an unpleasant comment, an aggressive driver cuts you off in traffic, a family member insists on arguing. In each of these moments, the decision is in your hands. React immediately and fuel the conflict, or take a step back, observe the situation with detachment, and respond with intelligence. Epictetus taught that it's not what happens that affects us, but the way we interpret what happens. If someone criticizes you in a meeting and you take it as a personal attack, you will feel anger and react defensively. But if instead you give yourself a moment to breathe and analyze whether it's really worth responding, you can act with calm and professionalism, without letting emotion control your behavior. Non-reaction is a demonstration of strength. Most people act impulsively, enslaved by their emotions. When someone irritates them, they react without thinking, letting anger take control. But true power lies in those who resist this first reaction. Those who understand that they don't need to prove anything to anyone, and those who choose when and how to act. Seneca reminded us that time is a great filter for emotions. What seems like an unforgivable offense today will lose its importance in a few days. What deeply irritates us now will seem insignificant in a few hours. That's why not reacting immediately allows us to gain perspective, see the situation clearly before deciding how to act. Practicing non-reaction doesn't mean accepting everything in silence or letting others walk all over us. It means acting by reason, not by emotion. If something truly deserves a response, the best answer will be one given with a calm mind. Instead of responding to fire with more fire, we respond with intelligence and equanimity, not because we're weak, but because we understand that our peace is more valuable than a pointless argument. Every time you feel the impulse to react, remember that you don't have to. You can let the emotion pass. Observe it without being dragged by it, and when you do this, you will notice something incredible. The conflicts will decrease, the anxiety will reduce, and the people who used to provoke you will lose their power over you. Non-reaction is the doorway to true freedom, the ability to decide how and when to respond without being a slave to external stimuli. Number 8, The importance of living with purpose. When you don't have a clear purpose, life feels empty, chaotic, and directionless. You wake up every day without a real reason to move forward, with nothing to motivate you beyond the routine. This feeling of emptiness creates frustration. A lack of purpose makes people irritable and reactive, always on the defensive. Any inconvenience, any obstacle seems bigger than it really is because there's nothing greater to focus on. Without direction, the mind fills with noise and disorder, and in this state it's easy to fall into anger and resentment. The Stoics understood that the key to mental peace is having a purpose aligned with our values, something that makes us get out of bed every day. When you live without a defined purpose, everything becomes a distraction. Traffic bothers you. Other people's words irritate you. You feel that life is unfair. But when you have a purpose, those same things lose their importance, not because they cease to exist, but because your focus is on something greater. Marcus Aurelius said that each of us should ask, "Why am I here? What really matters in my life?" When you have purpose, small frustrations no longer control you. You don't waste time reacting to every provocation because your energy is focused on something meaningful. There was a time in my life when I had no direction. I felt stuck in a meaningless routine, doing things that didn't fulfill me, and the consequence of that was constant irritability. Anything bothered me. Any problem seemed huge because I had no real reason to get up in the mornings. I lived on autopilot, letting circumstances dictate my mood. But when I found my purpose, everything changed. I decided to focus on creating content, sharing ideas that could help others, building something that made sense to me. And when I did this, I realized that the problems that once seemed unbearable were now just part of the journey. I no longer got irritated by small things because I had a bigger vision. Anger stopped being a habitual reaction because I had something more valuable to focus on. The Stoics teach us that purpose is not something you find, but something you define. You don't need to wait for life to give you a purpose. You must create it for yourself. Epictetus said that each person has the responsibility to decide what they want to become and what they want to offer the world. It's not about waiting for inspiration, but about taking action, seeking what truly makes us feel alive. When you discover your purpose and work on it, your mind changes. Frustration decreases because you no longer worry so much about what you can't control. You don't need external validation. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You simply do what you know you must do, and that brings you satisfaction. When you live with purpose, life stops feeling like a series of problems and becomes something meaningful. You no longer react with anger to every obstacle because you understand that challenges are part of the journey. Each day has meaning, and every action contributes to something greater. When this happens, peace becomes a natural state, not because everything is perfect, but because you've decided where to focus your energy. There's no space for anger when you're busy building something that truly matters. If you feel frustrated with life, if you find that you react too easily, ask yourself if you truly have a clear purpose. Ask yourself if you're dedicating your time to something that fills you, or if you're just passing the days aimlessly. The difference between a life full of frustration and a life full of meaning lies in this answer. Find what motivates you, what makes you wake up every morning eager to keep going. And when you do that, you'll see how anger loses its power over you. You have a purpose, and everything else becomes background noise. Number 8. Reprogram your emotional response. The brain is not bound to one way of reacting. Thanks to neuroplasticity, we can train it to respond differently to situations that used to provoke anger or frustration. The idea that we are a certain way and can't change is a lie we tell ourselves. The brain is flexible, and just like a muscle, it can be strengthened in certain areas depending on how we train it. If every time something irritates us, we respond with anger, we're reinforcing that neural connection and making anger an automatic response. But if we learn to respond with calm over time, that becomes the new programming of our brain. When we face a situation that would normally make us explode, our instinct is to follow the pattern. If someone insults us, if things don't go as expected, if someone behaves disrespectfully, the immediate reaction is the one we've reinforced over the years. But here's the key. If we consciously force ourselves to respond differently, we're creating a new neural pathway. At first it feels forced, uncomfortable, even false. But with repetition, the brain starts to accept this new response as normal, and eventually calm becomes our automatic reaction. I remember once when my dog destroyed something I valued. My usual reaction would have been to get angry, raise my voice, and feel that internal explosion of frustration. But in that moment, I decided to do something different. Instead of giving in to anger, I forced myself to take a deep breath and pet my dog. At first, it felt like I was suppressing my emotion. But what I was really doing was teaching my brain that not everything needs to be a response of anger. I repeated this many times, each time my dog did something that would normally irritate me. Over time, I noticed my natural response had changed. I no longer felt that tension in my chest. I didn't need to hold myself back because my brain learned that these situations weren't a threat and that anger wasn't necessary as a response. Neuroplasticity shows us that we are not condemned to be prisoners of our emotions. We can redirect our impulses and make calm our new normal. Each time we decide not to act with anger, we strengthen the neural connection of patience and equanimity. And the more we do this, the more natural it becomes. Marcus Aurelius said that we cannot control what happens, but we can control our reaction to it. This is not just a philosophical principle, it's a scientific reality. The brain changes based on what we practice. If we practice serenity over time, it becomes our default response. This process doesn't happen immediately. At first, the mind will try to revert to old patterns because that's what it knows, what feels familiar. But if we are persistent, if each time we feel anger growing, we force ourselves to stop, breathe, and respond differently, we will see real change. One day we'll realize that situations that once made us explode now seem insignificant. Not because we're repressing anger, but because our brain has learned that there's no reason to feel it. Anger is a habit, just like calmness. If we feed anger, it grows and strengthens. But if we ignore it and cultivate serenity, it weakens and disappears. It's not about pretending, but about reprogramming our mind to function in a way that benefits us rather than harms us. If we want to be calmer, more balanced, and wiser in our responses, we need to practice this day after day. And with repetition, the time will come when calm will no longer be an effort. It will simply be who we are. Number 9, love and gratitude overcome anger. Anger is an emotion that consumes, wears us out, and makes us lose control of our own mind. But there are two forces capable of dissipating it: love and gratitude. When we're trapped in anger, it's because our attention is focused on the negative, on what bothers us, on what we believe is wrong, on lack, frustration, and injustice. But if instead we direct our minds to what we love and what we are grateful for, anger loses its power. Not because the problems disappear, but because we stop giving them the energy necessary to continue affecting us. Love connects us with what truly matters. If we're angry at someone, we can ask ourselves, do I prefer to win this argument or maintain this relationship? When we love someone, the need to prove we're right becomes secondary. Anger is selfish. It seeks revenge, seeks to prove a point. But love seeks to understand, seeks to build, seeks to unite. Often we let ourselves be carried away by anger in trivial situations, reacting thoughtlessly, and end up hurting the people we love the most. But if in those moments we remember how we feel about them, if we take a moment to connect with love instead of anger, our response changes. Gratitude is also a powerful antidote. When we are grateful, there is no space for anger. We cannot feel resentment and gratitude at the same time. If something bothers us, we can stop and do a simple exercise. Think of 3 things we're grateful for in that moment. Maybe it's our health, a special person in our life, or the opportunity to learn from the situation. This simple act changes the direction of our thoughts, takes us out of a reactive state, and gives us back control. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations about the importance of remembering the fleeting nature of life. If today were the last day with someone you love, would you really waste time feeling angry at that person? Gratitude reminds us that each moment is valuable and that anger is a waste of our time and energy. Some time ago, I decided to conduct a small experiment with myself. Each time I felt anger or frustration, instead of reacting as I usually would, I forced myself to think of something I was grateful for in that moment. At first, it felt forced, as if I were ignoring reality. But over time, I realized my mind began to do this automatically. One day, someone spoke to me with contempt, and instead of feeling irritated, the first thought I had was, I'm grateful for my health and for being able to keep moving forward. This thought allowed me to respond calmly without fueling the conflict. Not because the other person deserved it, but because I deserved to maintain my peace. The Stoics believe that our emotions are not the result of what happens around us, but of what we choose to think about what happens. If we focus on injustice, lack, and what irritates us, anger grows. But if instead we focus on what we have, what we love, and what we are grateful for, anger dissolves. It's not a mental trick, but a way of training our mind to view reality from a higher perspective. Epictetus said that the secret to happiness is not in having more, but in desiring less. When we cultivate gratitude, we realize that we already have enough and we don't need to react with anger because life is still good, despite the small setbacks. We can't avoid moments of tension or control how others behave, but we can decide which emotions we want to nourish within us. If we choose love and gratitude, anger won't find space to grow. When we love, we understand. When we are grateful, we let go. In this daily practice, little by little, we become more serene, more centered, and less prone to react with anger. Not because the world has changed, but because we've learned to see it differently. Number 10, establish healthy boundaries. If you don't set boundaries, you allow others to decide how they will treat you. It's not about being confrontational or rejecting others, but about defining the limits of your patience, time, and energy. When you don't set clear boundaries, you send the message that it's okay for others to disrespect you, interrupt you constantly, and not value your time. When that happens, frustration grows, anger builds up, and you end up emotionally drained. But the responsibility for setting boundaries is not others. It's yours. Only you can decide what you allow and what you don't. Often we tolerate certain behaviors because we fear appearing selfish or unpleasant. We have difficulty saying no because we're afraid the other person will be offended or reject us. But the real problem is not saying no when it's necessary. If someone constantly interrupts you at work, if a friend only reaches out when they need something, or if a family member criticizes you without reason, is it really your responsibility to accept that? Seneca said we cannot control how others act, but we can control how we position ourselves in relation to them. If we allow ourselves to be treated improperly without reacting, we are giving permission for that to continue. If someone criticizes you unjustly and you say nothing, that person assumes it's normal to treat you that way. But if you calmly and firmly establish that you won't accept such behavior, you're sending a clear message. You value yourself enough not to tolerate disrespect. You don't need to be aggressive or argue. You just need to be clear. Simple phrases like, I won't tolerate that kind of comment. My time is valuable, please respect it, or I'm not comfortable with this, can completely change the dynamics of a relationship. I remember a time when I allowed people to interrupt me constantly. No matter what I was doing, if someone wanted my attention, I dropped everything to help. At first, I thought this made me a good person, but over time I realized I was just allowing other people's needs to be more important than mine. I felt frustrated and drained, but the fault wasn't with others. I never set a boundary. One day I decided to change that. When someone interrupted me, I simply said, I'm busy now, let's talk later. At first it was hard, but little by little others understood that my time was important too. And the most surprising thing was that I didn't lose any important relationships. On the contrary, I started to feel more respected. The Stoics understood that setting boundaries isn't an act of rejection, but of self-respect. Epictetus said we must decide what is in our control and what is not. We can't prevent someone from trying to overstep our boundaries, but we can decide how to react. If every time someone treats you badly, you allow it in silence, you're not being virtuous. You're abandoning your responsibility to protect your well-being. Saying no is an act of courage, not because it's easy, but because it shows that you value yourself and respect others. On the contrary, it creates healthier relationships where both parties know what to expect and what is acceptable. Often people don't even realize they're overstepping a boundary until someone points it out. You can't expect others to guess what bothers you. you need to communicate it. And if after that respect is still not shown, you need to ask yourself whether that person should really continue to be part of your life. Every time you choose not to set a boundary out of fear of conflict, you're choosing internal conflict instead of external conflict. You're choosing your own dissatisfaction just to avoid a difficult conversation. But avoiding the problem doesn't solve it. Learning to say no without guilt is one of the most valuable skills you can develop, not because it makes you stronger in the eyes of others, but because it makes you stronger within yourself. Setting boundaries isn't about controlling others. It's about protecting your peace and living with dignity.
Number 12, the importance of separating facts from beliefs. Often we suffer not because of what actually happens, but because of what we believe it means. We live trapped in interpretations, in stories we tell ourselves about who we are and about others. But most of these stories aren't facts. They're just beliefs we accept without questioning. And these beliefs can be the biggest obstacle to our mental peace. The Stoics taught us that the key to tranquility is learning to differentiate between what is a fact and what is just our perception of it. When we don't make this distinction, we get entangled in unnecessary emotions. We react with anger, sadness, or fear without realizing that we're reacting to something that isn't real. If someone calls us useless, it's not the comment that hurts us, but our decision to believe it. The objective fact is that someone said some words, but our mind turns those words into an absolute truth. What if they're right? What if I really am like that? Suddenly, a simple opinion becomes a burden we carry for years. We don't stop to question whether it's true. We simply absorb it. Epictetus warned us about this. He said that it's not the events themselves that affect us, but the interpretation we make of them. If someone criticizes us, we can see it as an opportunity to improve or as a personal attack. The difference between these two responses isn't in the facts, but in our beliefs. Humans are experts at creating stories. We tell ourselves we're not good enough, that we don't deserve certain things, that will never change. And the worst part is that we believe these stories as if they were unquestionable facts. But where do these beliefs really come from? Often they come from past experiences, from words we've heard, from mistakes we've made, which we turn into permanent labels. If we ever fail at something, we tell ourselves, I'm a failure. If someone rejects us, I'm not worthy of love. But none of these thoughts are facts. They are just interpretations, beliefs we reinforce over time without realizing we can change them. I remember a time when I believed I wasn't smart enough to achieve certain things. Not because there was proof of it, but because at some point in my life, someone made me feel that way, and I chose to accept it as truth. Every time I faced a challenge, that belief came back. You can't do it, you're not capable. But one day I decided to question it. Where was the real proof that I was incapable? Hadn't I already learned many things in life? Hadn't I overcome difficulties before? I realized that this belief wasn't a fact. It was just a story I was telling myself. And by understanding this, I began to let it go. It wasn't immediate, but with every thought I challenged, I regained a little more control. The Stoics practiced mental self-discipline. They trained their ability to examine their own thoughts and filter what truly deserved attention. They didn't accept any emotion or idea without first analyzing it. Marcus Aurelius advised us to ask ourselves in the face of any negative thought, is this true? Is it really as terrible as I believe? Most of the time the answer was no. We're not as limited as we think. We're not the labels others have placed on us. We don't need to be slaves to beliefs that prevent us from growing. But to free ourselves from them, we first need to recognize that they aren't absolute facts. Every time you feel that a belief is limiting you, question it. Ask yourself if it's truly true or if you simply accepted it without evidence. If you can replace it with a more realistic version, you'll have taken a huge step toward emotional freedom. Separating facts from beliefs is the path to no longer being a prisoner of your own mind. It's how you reclaim control, how you stop reacting on autopilot and begin living with clarity. When we learn to see reality without the distortions of our beliefs, we find a peace that was always there, waiting to be discovered. Number 13, developing a healthy self-image. Your self-image cannot depend on others' opinions. If you live through the eyes of the world, you'll be a prisoner of external approval. One day they praise you and you feel invincible. The next, they criticize you and you fall apart. That instability comes from building your self-worth on external foundations, on something you can't control. But when your perception of yourself comes from self-knowledge and acceptance, no one can steal your peace. The Stoics understood that true strength comes from looking within, from defining who you are without waiting for external validation. Only when you stop depending on what others think can you begin to live with true freedom. The problem begins when our self-image is built on beliefs imposed early in life. We absorb opinions, labels, and judgments without ever questioning them. If someone calls us shy, we accept it. If someone says we're a failure, we believe it. But how much of that is actually true? How much of our identity is based on ideas we've never examined? Marcus Aurelius reminded us to always ask whether what we believe about ourselves is really true or just a story we've been telling ourselves. The key is self-awareness, to observe yourself without filters, illusions, or self-deception, to accept your strengths and your flaws, not to resign yourself, but to be honest with yourself. If someone criticizes you, your automatic reaction may be to defend yourself, feel hurt, or try to prove the opposite. But what if instead you stop and reflect? If someone says you're selfish, instead of reacting with anger, you could ask, "Is this true?" If the answer is yes, then you have a chance to grow. If the answer is no, then the criticism holds no weight, and you can let it go without it affecting you. Epictetus taught that we shouldn't worry about what people say about us, but about what is true. It's not the criticism that hurts us, but the meaning we give it. If your self-image is strong, other people's words lose their power. For years, I worried too much about how others saw me. I tried to fit in, to be accepted, to meet external expectations. But all of that pulled me away from who I truly was. I didn't make decisions based on what I wanted, but on what I thought I had to do to be approved. That left me in a constant struggle because it was never enough. There was always someone with a different opinion, always something I had to change to please someone else. It was only when I realized I could never control what others think of me that everything changed. I stopped trying to fit in and started asking myself, who am I really? What do I want for myself? In that process, the need for approval began to fade. That doesn't mean conforming or giving up on growth. It just means recognizing your value without depending on outside sources. When you accept who you are, your strengths and weaknesses, successes and mistakes, you free yourself from the fear of judgment. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to demonstrate your worth, because you already have it. And the most powerful part is that when you stop seeking approval, you become more authentic. The people who really matter begin to respect you for who you are, not for who you're trying to be. True emotional freedom comes when you stop living for others and start living according to your own truth. That doesn't mean ignoring every external opinion, but learning to filter what really deserves your attention and what doesn't. If you know yourself, your values, your purpose, criticism is no longer a threat. You live with confidence and calm without needing to impress anyone. Not because you're perfect, but because you no longer need the world to validate your existence. And in that state of clarity, you find the peace that was always within you. Number 14, the fallacy of good and bad people. No one is entirely good or entirely bad. We're all a mix of right and wrong, moments of clarity and moments of weakness. But the human mind tends to simplify, to label, to classify others as good or bad based on what suits us, or based on our experience with them. However, this way of thinking is a fallacy, a distortion of reality that keeps us from understanding the complexity of human beings. When we see someone only through a label, we stop seeing who they truly are. A person's actions may be fair or unfair, generous or selfish, but reducing them to a single category prevents us from understanding them. The person who acts cruelly today may show compassion tomorrow. The one who's made mistakes can also do good. Marcus Aurelius reminded us to see others for what they truly are. Fallible human beings shaped by their history, fears, and experiences. No one is just one thing. No one is fully defined by their best or worst moments. When we truly understand that, we free ourselves from judgment and the emotional weight it brings. When someone treats us badly, our instinct is to label them as a bad person. We think they're unjust, cruel, that they deserve punishment. But have we stopped to ask what led them to act that way? Not to excuse their behavior, but to understand that no one is born evil. We're all products of our experiences and our choices. Epictetus taught that we shouldn't judge people solely by their actions, but remember that each person acts according to their level of understanding. If someone is disrespectful, maybe it's because they never learned another way to relate. If someone betrays, maybe it's because they've lived in fear their whole life. That doesn't mean we should accept wrongdoing, but it helps us understand that it's not always personal. Often, people act out of their own confusion, not from a conscious desire to cause harm. In society, people act according to their environments and circumstances. Someone may be kind to their family and ruthless in business, generous with friends and cold with strangers. But those contradictions don't mean they're a bad person, only that they're human. We've all acted in ways we're not proud of. We've all made mistakes, said hurtful things, made impulsive decisions. If we judge others harshly, we should apply the same standard to ourselves. And if we want to be understood for our weak moments, why not offer the same understanding to others? When we stop labeling people as good or bad, our relationships improve. We no longer react with so much frustration to other people's flaws because we understand that everyone is on their own learning journey. We become more patient, more balanced. That doesn't mean tolerating abuse or accepting injustice. It means learning to respond with wisdom instead of reacting with anger. Marcus Aurelius said that when someone acts wrongly, we should ask ourselves, did I really expect this person to be different? People act as they're able to, based on what they've learned, based on what their minds can grasp. If we expect perfection from others, we'll constantly be disappointed. Freeing ourselves from this mindset helps us find inner peace. We no longer feel the urge to punish, to react with resentment, to divide the world into allies and enemies. We become more objective, more serene, more capable of handling conflict with clarity. True strength isn't in judging others harshly, but in understanding that we're all on the same path, just at different stages of the journey. We're all here to learn and grow. And when we embrace that, we stop wasting energy on judging others and start focusing on the only thing we can truly control, our own evolution.
Number 15, the process of recognizing, investigating, and nurturing anger. Anger is a powerful emotion, but it doesn't have to control you. It might seem like an uncontrollable fire that consumes you in the moment, but if you learn to manage it with intelligence, it can become a beast of growth, not destruction. RIM is a technique that helps deal with anger effectively, without suppressing it or acting on impulse. It's a method based on mindfulness and self-reflection, something the Stoics practice daily, even though they didn't give it a specific name. With RIM, we can observe our anger without being swept away by it, understanding its origin and transforming its energy into something positive. The first step is to recognize that anger is present, not to deny it, not to suppress it, but to notice that it's there. Often when we get irritated, we react without thinking, as if we're on autopilot. We let the emotion carry us away without even realizing what's truly happening inside us. But if, in the moment when anger arises, you pause and say to yourself, "I'm feeling anger right now," you immediately create a separation between yourself and the emotion. Marcus Aurelius spoke about the importance of observing our emotions as if they were external phenomena, without fully identifying with them. If you can see anger as something transient, a reaction that arises but does not define who you are, you've already taken the first step toward controlling it. The second step is to investigate the origin of your anger. Instead of staying stuck in the superficial feeling of rage, ask yourself, where is this really coming from? Often anger is just a symptom of something deeper: fear, insecurity, unmet expectations, or past wounds that haven't been healed. Epictetus taught that it's not external events that disturb us, but our interpretation of them. If someone interrupts you in a conversation and it irritates you, it may not just be the interruption itself that bothers you, but a deeper belief that you're not respected or valued. If you can get to the root of the problem, anger loses its power, because you realize that what you're feeling has more to do with you than with the external situation. The third step is to nurture the part of yourself that needs healing. Here, instead of punishing yourself for feeling anger, you practice self-compassion. This doesn't mean justifying your behavior, but rather recognizing that there is a part of you that needs care. Perhaps you've suppressed certain emotions. Maybe there's a limiting belief that makes you react a certain way. Or maybe you simply need to give yourself more space to process what you're feeling. Marcus Aurelius said that we should treat ourselves with the same patience and understanding that we offer to others. You can't eliminate anger completely, but you can learn to respond with wisdom, not impulsiveness. As you practice this process, you'll notice that anger loses its power over you. This doesn't mean you'll never get angry again, but when it does happen, you'll know exactly how to handle it without destroying your peace or affecting your relationships. You'll learn that anger is just a passing emotion, not an order you must obey. Instead of reacting, you'll act with reflection, and in that space of awareness, you'll find true emotional freedom. I sincerely hope this message has been helpful. Are you tired of feeling like life is slipping through your fingers? Of letting opportunities pass you by? Living on autopilot without a clear purpose? It's time to stop, look inward, and focus on what truly matters. Stoicism teaches us to take control of our actions, stop living according to others' expectations, and focus on our own growth. Stop wasting time with distractions and start building an authentic life, full of purpose and progress. In this video, you'll discover how a Stoic mindset can transform your life and help you take back control of your destiny. We're going to explore 11 Stoic lessons that will help you stop wasting time and direct your energy toward what truly matters. If this is your first time on the channel, I'd love your support. Subscribe and like the video so I can keep creating content like this. Let's get started. Focusing on yourself is key to reducing external distractions and taking control of your life. According to Stoicism, what you give your attention to defines your reality. If you constantly allow your mind to be consumed by things beyond your control, you become a slave to circumstances and other people's opinions. But when you decide to direct your energy toward your personal growth, you gain clarity and self-mastery. This focus helps you eliminate what's unnecessary and reconnect with what's essential: your purpose, your values, and your path toward a virtuous life. The first step in this direction is dedicating time to self-care. In the constant noise of daily life, finding a quiet moment to reflect and care for your mind is essential. You can begin with simple practices like meditation, journaling, or reading inspiring texts. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, understood this deeply. Every morning he would write in his journal, reflect on his principles, and prepare to face the day's challenges with wisdom and calm. This habit not only strengthens the mind, but reminds us of what truly matters. Personal growth also requires identifying specific areas where you can improve. That means being honest and humble enough to recognize your flaws, but also committed enough to improve them. Maybe you need to develop more discipline, improve your relationships, or learn to better manage your emotions. Whatever the area, the essential thing is to act consistently. The Stoics taught that we shouldn't expect great change overnight. Instead, we should focus on small daily steps that bring us closer to our goals. Every minor improvement, no matter how small, is a victory over the distractions that once pulled you away from your purpose. When you focus on yourself, something powerful happens. Your mind becomes free from the influence of others. Criticism, judgment, and outside expectations lose their grip on you because your attention is now on what you can actually control. This doesn't mean isolating yourself or becoming indifferent, but rather learning to filter what truly matters. Your decisions stop being driven by the need for approval and start being guided by what is right according to your values. This mental clarity improves your ability to solve problems and act effectively in any situation. The resilience you develop by prioritizing your growth is impressive. You become someone capable of facing adversity with calm and determination. Problems that once seemed insurmountable are now seen as opportunities to grow and learn. This shift in perspective is at the heart of Stoicism. Life won't always be easy, but you get to choose how to respond. By focusing on improvement, you build a strong foundation that keeps you grounded even when your surroundings are chaotic. Ultimately, this process transforms not only your relationship with yourself, but also with others. When you prioritize your growth, you become a better friend, partner, and leader. You inspire those around you by the inner strength you radiate, one that doesn't rely on external validation.
This is the essence of a Stoic life: to live according to your principles, free of distractions, and to serve as a guide for others in a world filled with confusion. Centering yourself isn't selfish. It's the only way to be truly useful to the world. Only when you have control of your mind and your life can you contribute in an authentic and meaningful way. In a world overwhelmed by distractions, where social media and public opinion constantly compete for our attention, focusing on yourself isn't just important, it's necessary. We live in an age where comparisons are normal, and people measure their worth based on external standards. But Stoicism shows us that this way of living distances us from our essence and purpose. To find clarity and live with purpose, we must redirect our attention inward, where we find the tools to face any challenge and discover true peace. The problem lies in seeking external validation. When our identity and self-esteem rely on the opinions of others, we lose control of our lives. We become prisoners of expectations and standards we'll never fully meet. Comparing ourselves to others always puts us at a disadvantage. There will always be someone who seems more successful, happier, or ahead of us. But that's an illusion. Each time we spend energy comparing ourselves to others, we waste resources that could be used for our own growth. This pursuit of validation creates a vicious cycle that drains our energy and leaves us stagnant. The solution is a change in perspective. Stoicism invites us to look inward instead of outward. Epictetus said we should not worry about what's beyond our control. Our only task is to improve what lies in our hands: our thoughts, actions, and character. Understanding that each person has unique talents and purposes is essential. No one else has your exact circumstances, abilities, or challenges, so comparing yourself is pointless. Focusing on your personal development means recognizing your strengths, working on your weaknesses, and trusting that you're building something valuable and true. When you focus on yourself, your true potential is unlocked. The time and energy once lost to distractions are now invested in your growth. You begin to discover skills you didn't know you had and use them to move forward. This transformation isn't instant, but with consistency, it becomes clear. Prioritizing your development brings real satisfaction, a sense of fulfillment that doesn't depend on material achievements or approval from others. According to the Stoics, true happiness comes from living in harmony with your values and acting accordingly. This mindset not only improves your relationship with yourself, but also with those around you. As you become a more centered and conscious person, your influence grows. You inspire not through words, but through action. Your inner peace is reflected in your relationships, and your results show your true commitment. Letting go of comparison also frees you from the pressure to compete. Instead, you start to celebrate the progress of others without diminishing your own value. A person who focuses on themselves is not being selfish, but seeking self-awareness. This focus becomes a source of stability in a world full of uncertainty. Focusing on yourself is not egoism. It's a necessity for living fully. When you let go of the need for external validation and commit to personal growth, you become the true architect of your life. No matter how noisy the outside world is, you will always have the ability to find calm and direction within yourself. This is the power of Stoicism, a life guided by principles, not by opinions. By prioritizing your development, you not only achieve personal satisfaction, but also contribute to the world in a genuine way. The rise of social media has changed the way we perceive the lives of others. Through screens, we only see the most highlighted moments, the brightest smiles, the most impressive achievements, the dreamiest vacations. However, this filtered and edited version of reality is nothing more than an illusion carefully constructed. What isn't shown are the failures and doubts that everyone faces. When we fall into the trap of comparing our complete reality with this idealized version, we inevitably feel like we're falling behind, that we're not enough. Stoicism teaches us that this comparison is not only unfair, but also useless, as it diverts our attention away from what truly matters: our own progress. Comparing our lives to the perfect moments of others breeds insecurity and a constant feeling of inadequacy. This habit keeps us trapped in an endless cycle where it always seems like others are more advanced, happier, or more successful. But this perception is based on a false premise. We don't know the inner struggles or sacrifices of others,
We only see what they choose to show us. By obsessing over these comparisons, we not only distance ourselves from our essence, but also disconnect from our own goals and values. When we measure our worth by external standards, we become vulnerable to doubt and dissatisfaction. The solution begins with a shift in perspective. Stoicism invites us to recognize that everyone faces hidden challenges, no matter how perfect their external life may seem. No one is exempt from difficulties because challenges are an inherent part of the human experience. By accepting this, we stop idealizing others and begin to see them as equals, with strengths and weaknesses similar to ours. Additionally, it's crucial to define our own standards based on what we truly value, rather than measuring our success by other people's rules. We must set our own goals and work toward them. This focus gives us clarity and purpose, distancing us from external distractions. The problem with believing that we've reached our destination is that it limits our potential. We become complacent, allowing routine and inertia to replace the effort and discipline that brought us this far. Worse still, complacency makes us vulnerable to change because the world doesn't stop, even if we do. The Stoics taught that life is a constant flow, and if we're not advancing, we are inevitably moving backward. Believing there's nothing left to conquer clouds our judgment, reduces our ambition, and eventually creates dissatisfaction, even with what we've already achieved. The solution lies in staying in motion, constantly seeking new challenges. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reflected on how personal progress has no final point. Each goal reached should be seen as a step on the path, not the top of the mountain. This doesn't mean living in dissatisfaction, but understanding that there is always more to learn, contribute, and build. The key is to define new goals that align with your values and purpose. These goals don't have to be grand. Even small daily challenges can keep you focused and continuously growing. Seeking new challenges not only prevents stagnation, but also revitalizes your life. You begin to realize that it's not just about the end goal, but about who you become along the way. This continuous cycle of growth keeps you motivated and prepares you to face the inevitable adversities of life. Every new challenge becomes an opportunity to strengthen your character, learn more about yourself, and push your own limits. In this process, true success stops being a fixed destination and becomes a constant state of overcoming. Stoicism teaches us that success is not measured by a single moment of glory, but by the ability to persist and adapt over time. By accepting that arrival is not the end of the journey, we free ourselves from the idea that success is something to be achieved just once. We begin to understand that every accomplishment is part of a greater path, one that has no end, because there will always be something new to explore. This new perspective allows us to appreciate every stage of life, not as a stopping point, but as a starting point for something new. True success is not in reaching a destination, but in the continuous process of improvement. It is in this constant movement that we find purpose and satisfaction. The Stoics saw life as an opportunity for growth and virtue, a journey to become the best version of ourselves. No matter how many goals we reach, every accomplishment, every challenge overcome, and every lesson learned brings us closer to a fulfilling and meaningful life. When we understand this, we learn to embrace change, face uncertainty with courage, and remain in a state of constant progress, no matter where we are on our journey. 6. Purpose as the driving force of life. Purpose is what gives direction and meaning to life. It's the engine that drives you to get up every day with clarity about what you're doing and why. When you live with purpose, every action, no matter how small, has greater significance. On the other hand, when you lack direction, it's easy to be swept away by external noise, the expectations of others, or the constant pursuit of validation. Stoicism teaches us that living without a defined purpose is like navigating a boat without a rudder. You drift at the mercy of external currents, instead of guiding your life toward where you truly want to go. Without a clear purpose, it's common to fall into the trap of distractions. You worry more about what others are doing, compare your achievements to theirs, and question if you're doing enough. This lack of direction makes it easy to feel lost, as if your efforts have no impact or meaning. Moreover, When you seek meaning in external recognition, you end up depending on something you cannot control, which generates frustration and anxiety. Instead of living according to your essence, you act based on what others expect of you, moving further away from your true potential. The journey begins with deep introspection. Examine your talents, passions, and what truly moves you. The Stoics taught that every person has a unique role in the universe, a contribution that only they can make. It's not about seeking a perfect or grand purpose, but aligning your actions with what you value. Ask yourself, what makes me feel whole? How can I serve others? These questions help you discover a purpose that not only benefits you, but also adds something positive to the world. When this clarity is achieved, your days stop being a disjointed sequence of actions and become steps towards something greater. Living with purpose doesn't mean everything will be easy or that there will always be absolute clarity. There will be days of doubt, moments of uncertainty, and unexpected challenges. However, with a well-defined purpose, difficulties become part of the journey, not insurmountable obstacles. Each challenge arises as an opportunity to strengthen your commitment to yourself and to what you're building. Furthermore, when your purpose is aligned with your values, external distractions lose their power. You stop worrying about others' opinions because you know you're investing in what truly matters to you. The result of living with purpose is a life full of meaning. You no longer need the validation of others because you find satisfaction in the simple fact of progressing on your path. Your accomplishments are not measured by external standards, but by the impact they have on your life and the lives of those around you. This focus provides a constant source of motivation that doesn't depend on external circumstances. It not only makes you more resilient, but also more authentic. Instead of pursuing superficial goals, you dedicate yourself to what truly has value, building a life that reflects your deepest principles. Purpose is the anchor that keeps your life stable amidst chaos. It allows you to face life's ups and downs with calm and determination. Stoicism reminds us that we cannot control everything around us, but we can decide how to respond to situations. Living with purpose is a daily choice, an act of courage that allows you to keep your focus on what's essential, regardless of the distractions or difficulties that arise. 7. Value time as a limited resource. Time is the most valuable resource we have, yet it's often the one we waste most frequently. Every second that passes cannot be regained. A lost amount of money can be earned again, but wasted time is irretrievable. According to Stoicism, we must treat time as a precious commodity, something that deserves our attention and respect. Yet too often we mindlessly give it away to distractions, procrastination, and commitments that don't add value to our lives. Life is not infinite, and every moment spent without purpose is a lost opportunity to live it fully. Wasting time is one of the greatest mistakes we make, often unconsciously. We get caught up in trivialities, allow other people's urgencies to dictate our priorities, or follow the inertia of doing what's easiest instead of what truly matters. Stoicism teaches us to take control of our time by focusing on what's essential. Seneca said, "It's not that we have little time, but that we waste a lot of it." When we let distractions fill our days, we waste the opportunity to live aligned with our values. To truly value time, it's crucial to learn to prioritize. Not everything that seems urgent is important, and not everything that seems important deserves our energy. Tasks that have a significant impact on our long-term goals should take precedence over those that offer only immediate gratification. This requires discipline because it's tempting to focus on what's easier or more attractive in the moment. But without clarity on our priorities, time slips away into shallow activities. And at the end of the day, we realize we haven't made progress on what truly matters. Being mindful of the present moment is another essential way to value time. Life happens here and now, but often our minds are stuck in the past or projecting into the future. By living this way, we miss the richness of every instant. Stoics practiced mindfulness, focusing on what was right in front of them instead of worrying about what they couldn't control. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that we should act in the present as if each day were our last, because one day, inevitably, it will be. This perspective helps us invest our energy in what truly matters and experience greater satisfaction in our daily actions. Valuing time also means learning to say no. There are commitments that don't align with our priorities, relationships that don't add value to our lives, and habits that don't contribute to our well-being. Saying no is an act of respect for ourselves and for the time we've been given. It means recognizing that every minute counts, and we cannot afford to waste it on things that don't make sense. By setting clear boundaries, we not only protect our time, but also strengthen our ability to focus on what really matters. Understanding that time is limited should not fill us with anxiety, but with determination. Each day is an opportunity to get closer to our goals, grow as individuals, and contribute meaningfully to the world around us. Living with this mentality transforms our relationship with time, allowing us to use it wisely and effectively. This doesn't mean filling every minute with frenzied activity, but rather acting intentionally, ensuring that every action reflects our priorities and values. Stoicism reminds us that life is short, but we can give it depth by living with purpose. When we learn to value time as a precious resource, we stop wasting it on trivialities and start investing it in the essentials. In the end, it's not about how many years we live, but about how we use every moment we are given. Focusing on what's important, being present, and acting with intention are the keys to making the most of our time and living a full, meaningful life. 8. Building habits. Aligned with your goals. Habits are the foundation of any significant transformation in life. According to Stoicism, our character is not formed by grand, isolated moments, but by the small actions repeated every day. Every habit you build, whether positive or negative, contributes to the structure of your life. If your habits are aligned with your goals, each day you get a little closer to the life you want to build. But if they aren't, even without realizing it, you drift further from your objectives. The key is to recognize the power of habits in shaping your destiny and take responsibility for creating them consciously. To build effective habits, the first step is to set clear goals. Knowing where you are going helps you identify the specific actions you need to incorporate into your routine. Without a clear goal, it's easy to get lost in the inertia of everyday tasks that don't contribute to your progress. Reflect on what you really want to achieve, and from there, identify the habits necessary to get there. For example, if your goal is to improve your health, key habits might include eating a balanced diet, exercising regularly, and getting adequate rest. If your goal is professional growth, you may need to dedicate time each day to learning or developing new skills. Another important aspect is to start with small steps. The Stoics valued the idea of gradual progress. Seneca said that nothing great is achieved all at once, but rather through small, continuous efforts. Trying to change many things at once can be overwhelming and lead to failure. Instead, focus on one or two habits that you can maintain consistently. If you want to read more, start with a few pages a day. If you want to meditate, start with 5 minutes. These small steps are not only easier to manage, but also build momentum over time. Tracking your progress allows you to become aware of your growth and stay motivated. You can use an app, a calendar, or even a simple notebook to mark each day you stick to your habit. This tracking not only brings clarity about what you're doing, but also creates a sense of accomplishment, even on the toughest days. Additionally, celebrating each small victory, no matter how minor it seems, strengthens your commitment. Recognizing that you took one more step, no matter how small, encourages you to keep going. The benefit of building habits aligned with your goals is that they create deep, lasting transformation. Consistent habits not only bring you closer to your objectives, but also transform your identity. Each time you practice a positive habit, you reinforce the idea that you are someone committed to growth. If you meditate daily, you begin to see yourself as a centered person. If you exercise regularly, you start identifying as someone who cares for their health. This internal transformation is what truly drives sustainable change. It's not just about achieving goals, but about becoming the person capable of achieving them. As Stoicism teaches us to focus on what's within our control, and our habits are entirely within our hands. We cannot predict the future or control all circumstances, but we can decide how we act, day after day. By building habits aligned with our goals, we ensure that our actions are guided by our values and objectives, not by chance or convenience. This process not only brings us closer to success, but also provides a greater sense of purpose and satisfaction. Building habits is an investment in the future, an act of discipline that, over time, becomes freedom. When we consistently do what's right, we reduce the need to make decisions all the time because our actions become automatic. This process doesn't happen overnight, but with patience and perseverance, the results are inevitable. In the end, the habits we choose to build define who we are and what we can achieve. The question is, are your habits working for you or against you? The answer is in your hands, and the moment to start is now. 9. Design your future. In 5 years, you will be in a completely different place than you are today. The question is, will this future be the result of conscious decisions, or will it be the product of inertia and neglect? According to Stoicism, the future is not something that simply happens, but something we build with our daily actions. Every choice, no matter how small, contributes to the direction of your life. If you don't consciously design your future, other factors, circumstances, other people's expectations, or even your own fears will design it for you. And when you let your life unfold by chance, you end up in a place you probably wouldn't have chosen. Reflect on your current trajectory and project your outcomes. Ask yourself honestly, where are my habits, decisions, and priorities taking me? If you keep doing exactly what you're doing today, where will you be in a few years? Will you be where you want to be? Or will you find yourself in an undesired place simply because you didn't stop to assess your direction? Stoics like Marcus Aurelius emphasize the importance of constant self-reflection, ensuring that we live according to our values, not merely reacting to the world around us. Negligence is one of the greatest threats to a meaningful destiny. When we avoid facing our responsibilities, postpone what matters, or choose comfort over effort, we allow our life to crumble slowly. This decline affects not only our external results, such as achievements and relationships, but also our self-esteem. Knowing you're not doing your best weighs heavily on your spirit, creating a cycle of demotivation and apathy. Stoicism teaches us that the key to breaking this cycle is to act with discipline, even when we don't feel like it, even when the path seems difficult. The antidote to negligence is action and the foundation for building a conscious destiny. This means taking full responsibility for your life and understanding that while you can't change everything overnight, you can start right now. You don't need giant steps, you need consistency. Small daily efforts accumulated over time bring about the most significant changes. Seneca said we shouldn't wait for the future to give us what we want. We must work in the present to build it. Every day you choose to act instead of procrastinate, to advance instead of stagnate, is an investment in a better future. Stoicism also reminds us that there are no valid excuses for not starting. The future will come, whether you want it to or not, and the decisions you make today will determine whether you look back with pride or regret. If you allow excuses to dominate your mind, thinking you don't have time, that you're not ready, or that it's too late, you are surrendering your power to fear and laziness. But when you take control, when you consciously decide where you want to go and start working toward it, you become the architect of your destiny. This process is not easy, but it is profoundly liberating because you realize that you have the power to change your life. Designing your future doesn't mean controlling every detail of what happens. There will always be external factors that you can't predict or control. However, Stoicism teaches us that it's not about what happens, but how we respond to it. When you work on yourself, cultivate habits and actions aligned with your goals, you are building the resilience needed to face any challenge that comes your way. You are creating a solid foundation that will allow you to move forward, no matter the circumstances. In 5 years, you will be the result of the choices you make today. Are you ready to take control and design a future that reflects your values, your dreams, and your potential? Or will you let neglect and inertia take you to a place you didn't choose? The decision is in your hands, and the moment to act is now. In the end, there's no greater satisfaction than looking back and knowing that the path you've traveled was built with intention and purpose. 10. Visualize your growth. A growth mindset is the driving force behind development in all aspects of life. According to Stoicism, what truly matters is not what happens to you, but how you respond to it. A growth mindset allows you to view both successes and failures not as final destinations, but as opportunities to learn and advance. When you adopt this approach, each experience, even the most challenging ones, becomes a stepping stone toward a better version of yourself. Instead of avoiding difficulties, you face them with the conviction that they hold fertile ground for your growth. Challenges, whether big successes or painful failures, are inevitable in life. However, what defines your path is how you use them. When you achieve great success, it's easy to fall into the trap of complacency and think you don't need to try anymore. But Stoicism teaches us that successes are not final points, but milestones in an ongoing journey. If you stop and cease growing, your success will begin to crumble because nothing in life is static. The same applies to failure. It should not be viewed as a permanent defeat, but as an opportunity to reassess, learn, and adjust your course. Every setback can be the beginning of a new trajectory, as long as you maintain the right mindset. Having a growth mindset also means not getting stuck in the past, whether by celebrating old achievements or lamenting mistakes made. Living in the present is essential for continued growth. Each day is a new opportunity to improve, learn something new, and move closer to your goals. If you hold on to what you've already accomplished, you lose sight of the potential you can still reach. Marcus Aurelius said we should act in the present as if each day were a new life full of possibilities. This focus helps maintain resilience in the face of success and in dealing with failure. It's important to recognize that if your personal growth doesn't keep pace with your financial, professional, or emotional progress, these aspects will start to regress. The skills and mindset that got you here won't be enough to keep you where you are or take you further. The world is constantly changing, and you must evolve with it. This doesn't mean seeking frenetic or unattainable progress, but committing to constant and sustainable development. Learning something new each day, improving your skills, and finding ways to push your own limits are practices that not only maintain your achievements, but also prepare you to reach new heights. Stoicism teaches us to view growth as an internal process that doesn't depend on external factors. It's not about accumulating wealth, power, or recognition, but about becoming a wiser, more disciplined, and virtuous person. When you focus on internal growth, you realize that external successes are a natural consequence, not the main goal. This brings stability and purpose, even in the most uncertain times. With a well-established growth mindset, you don't define yourself by your successes or failures, but by your ability to learn and adapt at every stage of life. Maintaining this mindset requires discipline and self-awareness. It's not easy to face challenges with a positive attitude or admit that there's always something to improve. But by doing so, you free yourself from self-imposed limitations and discover a potential that once seemed unattainable. Each small step forward strengthens your confidence and motivates you to keep moving. It's an accumulative process that, over time, transforms not only your results, but also your perspective on life. The growth mindset is the path to a full and meaningful life. It allows you to see change as an opportunity, not a threat. By adopting this perspective, you realize that true success isn't about reaching a final destination, but about becoming someone who is in constant evolution, learning and overcoming themselves with each step of the journey. 11. Set clear and realistic goals. Setting clear and realistic goals is one of the most important actions you can take to direct your life. When you have specific goals, your focus intensifies and your energy is channeled into what really matters. Stoicism teaches us that we should not waste our time or efforts on purposeless activities. By setting concrete goals, every action gains meaning and purpose, guiding you toward progress. A clear goal is not just a destination, but a compass that keeps you on track, even in the face of distractions and life's challenges. The problem with vague goals is that they lack direction and structure. Saying you want to improve or be a better person isn't enough, because these statements don't show how to do it, nor provide a clear path to move forward. Vague goals are like navigating a boat without a map. You may be going somewhere, but you don't know if it's the right direction. This causes frustration because progress seems slow or non-existent. Furthermore, when there is no clarity about what you want to achieve, it's easy to get distracted and waste time on things that don't bring you closer to your goals. The solution is to break your goals into small, achievable steps. The Stoics understood the importance of acting with intention and building little by little. Seneca said that no great feat is accomplished overnight. All significant progress is the result of constant, disciplined efforts. For example, if your goal is to write a book instead of focusing on the entire project, focus on writing 1 page a day. If you want to improve your health, start with small actions like walking 10 minutes daily or reducing unhealthy food consumption. These steps are not only manageable but also help build momentum, which is essential to keep you motivated. When you break your goals into smaller parts, each accomplishment becomes a victory, strengthening your confidence and commitment. Constant progress, even if small, is far more effective than trying to achieve big feats all at once. Each small step strengthens your discipline and brings you closer to your final goal. Additionally, this method helps maintain focus on the present, which is essential in Stoicism. The Stoics taught that we should focus on the actions we can take today, because it is in the present that we have the power to act. Don't worry about the distance to your final goal. Focus on the next step and trust the process. The result of setting clear goals and breaking them down into achievable steps is a life with direction and purpose. You will know exactly what to do each day to move forward, eliminating the feeling of being lost or stagnant. This method also protects against procrastination. When your goals are well defined, there are no excuses for delaying what needs to be done. Furthermore, constant progress generates an internal motivation that drives you forward even on the toughest days. Seeing how your daily efforts accumulate and bring you closer to your goal is one of the most gratifying feelings. Setting clear goals is not just an organizational exercise, but a powerful tool for personal growth. When you define what you want to achieve and create a plan to get there, you are intentionally designing your life. It doesn't matter if your goals are big or small. What matters is that they are aligned with your values and with who you want to become. This clarity allows you to move forward with confidence, knowing that every step you take has purpose. Stoicism reminds us that progress isn't measured by speed, but by consistency. It doesn't matter if you move slowly, as long as you're walking in the right direction. By setting goals and keeping them clear and disciplined, you create a roadmap that guides you to a better future. This approach not only helps you achieve your goals, but also transforms your daily life into a meaningful journey full of purpose.